wal-inkhifad. It actually means to isolate yourself. The first meaning of khushu' literally is to isolate yourself, inziwa. And it also means to lower yourself or humble yourself. خَشَعَ بَصَرَهُ إِنْكَسَرَ. When his eyes just dropped. And al-khushu' fi al-sawt wal-basar wal-badan. They say the idea of khushu' manifests in the eyes. You know, when someone's so ashamed they can't even make eye contact, they lower their eyes out of humility. That's actually an aspect of a manifestation of khushu'. Then the second aspect of khushu' is you can't even raise your voice. You know, like when you're in front of a judge or a police officer pulls you over and you're like, oh, is everything okay, officer? Like your voice doesn't come out. Like that's khushu'. You just experienced khushu'. And when the hair on your skin rises out of nervousness and out of becoming jittery because you are in front of a judge or in front of a teacher, and you're embarrassed, that's actually khushu'. Allah says, this is very difficult for people to acquire, except for people who have khushu'. Now why would someone feel that way? They would feel that way, lowering their eyes. Now by the way, in salah, what do we do with our eyes? We lower them. Do we scream in salah? No. Allah لا تجهر بصلاتك ولا تخافت بها وابتغي بين ذلك سبيلا. This is khushu' in salah. There's a humility in the recitation in salah. There's a humility in how we recite before Allah in salah. And then on top of that, the body itself. If you look at the position of the body, the head is down, the eyes are down, the neck is bent over. This is actually a position of great humility. Just even physically, the form of salah, of us leaning over in ruku', us falling into sujood. These are physical positions of humility, of khushu'. And that's on the bodily side. Allah is saying, for those who truly, until they get this inside of them, getting help from Allah is going to be very difficult. In this ayah, there's a very powerful key that Allah not only gave to the Israelites, He's giving to this entire ummah. Until we become people of genuine khushu' before Allah, help will not come. وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ. The aid will not come, and you're not going to be qualified to ask for Allah's aid until you and I not only pray, but we actually we fulfill the spirit of the prayer with khushu'. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us a people of khushu'. I know some of you will have the question, how do you get khushu'? How in the world do you get khushu'? It's not hard, and it won't happen every time. It certainly won't. We're not capable of that. But all it requires is, at the end of the day, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. That's all it requires. When people ponder deeply into the Qur'an, and then they stand in front of Allah and recite His words, khushu' comes. Humility comes. When you remove yourself from distractions and put yourself in a position of prayer where you're not just getting it over with, you give it its time, then it will come. And by the way, who's being told to pray? The Jews are. There's no dispute about this, by the way. Some thought, Allah says in this ayah, you need to have sabr and salah. Must be this ayah is for the Muslims, not the Jews. But isn't it clear, Ya Bani Israel, from the very beginning? He's talking to them directly. Allah is saying, even in your book, whatever salah you have, if you give me khushu' from that, I will guide you to Islam even from there. There's another reality beyond the Muslims here. When any person of any faith, a Christian, a Jew, an agnost, a Hindu, a Buddhist, when they say, I don't know who you are, but I'm genuinely asking you for guidance. If you're out there, I really need help. And they just turn to Him in whatever prayer they can do, Allah won't leave them without guidance either. I don't know how many people I could tell you I've met that came to Islam that way. That literally had a conversation looking up at the sky. I need help. I'm looking for... They in their own words recited the Fatiha, Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. You need to guide me. You need to tell me what to do. I don't know where I'm going. You need to help me find the way. A dear friend of mine who passed away recently, older fellow, African-American fellow, he was in his late 70s. Brilliant man, absolutely brilliant man. And he studied, I think, about 50 religions. And in his quest for finding faith, he actually didn't just study a religion, he went to its birthplace. So he's been all over Southeast Asia, he's been to Jerusalem, he's been to all over. And one of the last religions he considered is Islam. And his assumption was an interesting assumption. He said, well, the religions that are the most popular are probably the most wrong. Because the truth can't be that easy. The truth must be really difficult to find. So I'm going to go find it in some, Aborigines community somewhere, or some Buddhist monastery or something, somewhere in the deep in the mountains or something. It can't be so. So he delayed his study of Islam. And by the way, Islam he was already from a Christian background, so his assumption that there were too many inherent contradictions within, he assumed every major religion probably has these issues. So he came to Islam last. And when he did study Islam, he didn't just take his shahada right away. He used to run a da'wah center. People used to come and ask questions about Islam day in and day out and just answer their questions. Subhanallah. And he just genuinely just turned to Allah and just said, guide me. And that's what Allah is saying here too. Even to the Jews He's saying, Ista'inu bis-sabri was-salah. وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ. So yes, there is the prayer that Allah revealed to us shar'an, the actual 5 daily prayers. When you make wudu, when you face the right direction, when you have the right form. But there's a heart. The heart of the prayer is a slave genuinely turning to the Master. And that kind of prayer, any human being is capable of. And when any human being does it, Allah will open the door for them. Subhanallah. Anyhow, الَّذِينَ يَظُنُّونَ أَنَّهُمْ مُلَاقُو رَبِّهِمْ. Who are these people that Allah says, it's going to be very hard for them, those people except the people of Khushoo. How do you become people of Khushoo? It's in the next ayah. This is the bayan of that ayah. That's why it begins with الَّذِينَ. The people of Khushoo, the people of humility, who يَظُنُّونَ أَنَّهُمْ مُلَاقُو رَبِّهِمْ, are convinced that they are going to be meeting with their Master. This is actually, by my own admission, a poor translation. It's very difficult to translate this ayah because of the phrase مُلَاقُو رَبِّهِمْ. Those of you that are familiar with the Arabic language, مُلَاقُ is an ism. It's a noun, it's not a verb. That's the first problem with this word, that it's not a verb. And when I translate it, I say those who will meet their Master. When I say will meet, I just used a verb. Right? Even though the Arabic is a noun. That's a limitation of the Arabic language, or the English language, in translating some of the phraseology of the Arabic, especially classical Arabic. The second problem here for Arabic students is that this is an idafa. It's not الَّذِينَ يَظُنُّونَ أَنَّهُمْ مُلَاقُونَ رَبَّهُمْ كَمَفْعُولْ بِهِ. No, مُلَاقُو رَبِّهِمْ. That becomes an idafa. Okay, that's a mudaf and a mudaf ilayh. Access students must have a smile on their face today because, hey, it paid off. Yes, I actually get something. Excellent. Now, mulaqu rabbihim, what does it mean? Let me just explain the linguistic concept in simple English to all of you before I get to this. When you say, in Arabic, when you say, let's say, ana alimun, or let's say no, ana akilun tufahan. It actually means, I am going to eat an apple. I'm going to eat an apple. Does that mean you've already eaten it or you're going to eat it? You're going to eat it. That is when those two words are separated. Ana akilun, tufahan. Tufahatan even. But if I say, ana akilu tufahatin, when you make it a mudaf and a mudaf, now you join these words together. Now they're combined together. I am the eater, I am the eater of an apple, actually suggests, it's bad English, but it means I've already eaten the apple. I am the one who ate the apple. Like there's a half-eaten apple there and you walk over and say proudly, I am the eater of the apple. Like I'm the killer of the guy. As opposed to I'm going to kill a guy, I'm the killer of the man. Meaning I've already killed him. When you make the idafa, it actually suggests the act is already done. When you don't make the idafa, it's actually not done yet. Notice before, Allah says, Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. He doesn't say, Inni ja'ilu khalifatin fil ard. He didn't make an idafa. I'm going to put a khalifa. Has he done it yet or no? He hasn't done it yet. That's why it's separated. Had he already done it and then told the angels, it would have been, Inni ja'ilu khalifatin fil ard. I've already put a khalifa on the earth. Here the ayah says, يَظُنُّونَ أَنَّهُمْ مُلَاقُو رَبِّهِمْ. They are convinced, let me translate literally now, as though they have already met their Master. They're convinced, not that they will meet their Master, but they have already met their Master. This is beautiful. Because they're convinced that they already met their Master when Allah first created them. Remember that journey of life we talked about before? They're convinced that actually happened. If this is applying to the Israelites, they're convinced that Musa alayhi salam took their leaders up and they met with Allah and He spoke to them. Remember we talked about that yesterday? They're convinced that that happened. And they're also convinced that every time they've stood in their prayer, who have they met? They've met Allah. They've already met Allah. These are people who are not waiting to meet Allah. That's happening too. By the way, that could be a guarantee. They're guaranteed to meet their Master. But actually, in a sense, they recognize they already continuously have been meeting their Master. They're not disconnected from Allah. And Allah is not disconnected from them. And they're the ones who go and meet with Him. أَنَّهُمْ مُلَاقُوا رَبِّهِمْ. And then the future comes. See, now the language differs. Allah doesn't say, وَأَنَّهُمْ رَاجِعُوهُ. No. راجعون إليه. أنهم إليه راجعون. There's no idafa now. What does that suggest? They are going to be going back only to Him. They already meet Him, and they've already met Him long before, and they are guaranteed to meet Him, and they're going to go back to Him. So actually, if you combine these two, one of these phrases is actually alluding to the past, and the other to the future. Otherwise, if you don't see it that way, it'll actually be a kind of redundancy. They're both about the future. They're going to meet Him and return to Him. Wait, when you meet someone, you've already returned to them. There's a redundancy, but it's not redundant. It's actually telling about these people that they are so convinced that they are actually already in communication with Allah. That they meet with Allah when they stand in prayer. You know? It's so beautiful that Allah Azza wa Jalla describes this scene. You know, this is a point, I've said this countless times, but this is the time to say it, man, because it's so awesome. I can't get over it. One of the most amazing moments in the history of the world, is when Musa alayhi salam climbed the mountain. Because he thought he's going to see a fire, and there he ended up conversing with Allah. And actually, more importantly, Allah ended up conversing with him. Ya Musa. Nudiya ya Musa. A call was made, Musa. He's on the mountain, he has no idea what's about to happen. He's thinking he's just going to pick up some fire and go start a fire for his family at the bottom of the mountain. And there Allah starts speaking to him. This is so profound a moment in the history of humanity. Allah is directly being heard by a human being. For the first time, Allah is directly being heard by a human being. And they're engaged in conversation. There is no way there could be a better opportunity for dhikr, for remembering Allah than that. I mean, what better way of remembering Allah than talking to Him what? Directly. And in that direct conversation, what does Allah tell Musa? Well, actually, let me tell you how to really remember me. وَأَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ لِذِكْرِي. Establish prayer so you can actually remember me. The real remembrance of mine will be where? Salah. And the idea there being that we stand in front of Allah, not much different from how Musa alayhi salam came into contact with Allah Azza wa Jal. And it's so beautiful that we are in direct, the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Every time you recite the Fatiha is actually a conversation. It's not words, it's a conversation. When you say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Allah says, Hamidani Abdi. My slave has just praised me. He tells all of His angels, look what he just said to me. You know, every ayah you recite, Allah responds. Then you recite, Allah responds. Then you recite, Allah responds. You're in conversation with Allah. You've already met Him. You're already meeting Him every time you're standing. What change in mindset happens when you realize that? I mean, we recite the Fatiha so often, we forget what we're doing. But to realize that we're actually in direct communication with Him, this is Khushoo. Just that realization will change the way you pray, will change the way you speak with Allah. So, الَّذِينَ يَظُنُّونَ أَنَّهُمْ مُلَاقُ رَبِّهِمْ وَأَنَّهُمْ إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. And to Him, they are the ones that are going to be brought back. Now, raji'una, I want to highlight something gorgeous about the word raji'un. In the Quran you see, إِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ. You will be brought back to Him. When you say to somebody, they will be brought back, that means they are being brought back whether they like it or not. Like if the police officer says, you are going to be taken to the courthouse. That doesn't mean you're going yourself, you're being taken. So when Allah says in the Quran, تُرْجَعُونَ, يُرْجَعُونَ, they are going to be taken back. But here you don't see, marju'un, you see raji'un. These are people who come before Allah, meeting Him every time in prayer, and they're convinced that they're going to be going back to Allah. They don't say they're going to be taken back to Allah. They actually say they are going to go back only and only to Him. In other words, they will come before Him willingly. These are the people on Judgment Day that can't wait to meet the one they've been talking to in prayer. They came on their own. There are some people who are herded and pushed